All right, good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. We'll call this meeting to order. It is March 7th, 2024, Thursday. We'll call this special board meeting to order. Welcome, good morning. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Stubblefield, to my board colleagues, to all of our staff, our principals, and everyone that is here in person, and to all those that are joining us online. Good morning, and thanks for being here with us on this beautiful Thursday as we call our special board meeting to order. As we do at every board meeting, we'll read our board norms and protocols. We agree to respect differences of opinions in making decisions for the district, to follow best practices in managing the superintendent and management of the board itself, to stay on task when conducting business for the district, including while at board meetings, to never surprise the superintendent or each other when conducting official business of the district, to read these norms at the beginning of each board meeting and at board workshops as a reminder of how to conduct our meetings, and to continually self-check to determine if we are following our norms when conducting district business. Again, thanks for joining us, everybody. Sorry for starting just a few minutes late. We were getting some technical things figured out, but we are good now. So with that, Ms. Smith, would you do a roll call, please?
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, present.
Maxine Drew.
Present.
Thank you. Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, present.
Robert Mylan Jr.
Robert Mylan Jr. present.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Present. Wanda Brownlee Page.
Rachel Russell. Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve today's today's special agenda?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions, discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Ms. Smith, roll call.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Robert Mylan Jr.
Robert Mylan Jr., yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell. Dr. Nguyen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Before I hand it off to Dr. Stubblefield, I do just want to say welcome and thank you to all of our principals. It's great to see you. Thank you for leading our buildings and our students and families in such a great year. We know that you don't always get the thank yous that you deserve for leading our students and all of your staff at your buildings. We know how important and critical the principal role is at a building to set the tone and culture. So I do just want to say thank you to all of you for this year that we've had, this academic year, and I'm looking forward to continuing to learn from all of you, for the board to continue to learn from all of you. And today really is just an initial conversation as part of our budget discussions. I know you all are going through your building needs assessment, so to kind of set the tone, I know Dr. Stubblefield's going to do this as well. Really just to kind of talk about the process that we have in your building needs assessment board. We have all the forms and our board docs to review all the assessments and the framework that was used by principals. So we'll kind of go through that process and learn how that was done at the buildings. And then we'll have an opportunity for questions, clarification from board members to principals or to staff about the process. If there's any information that we need additionally from the assessments or clarifications that we need. We know that this isn't the only time that we'll have an opportunity to have a conversation with our staff and principals. At our March 26th regular board meeting, there's no board report or staff report. The majority of the board meeting will be a follow-up to this discussion on our building needs assessment, so we'll have another opportunity for whatever we don't get to discuss today. And we'll try to go by building levels because we know every level is a little bit different in your needs and in what's provided. And so we'll talk a bit about that as well today. So just kind of wanted to set the context. And again, this isn't the only or the last time. It's just an initial conversation of an ongoing budget process that we're laying out for this year. So thank you, board members, for making the time. I know it's tough sometimes to get during the day to get here, but we appreciate your flexibility. And with that, and again, thank you, staff and principals, for your flexibility as well. So with that, Dr. Stubblefield, I'll pass it to you, and then we'll move forward.
Good morning. I did get a chance to speak with the principals before we came up here this morning. I just wanted for the board to go over the documents that are provided, to provide just some general information, and then I will turn it over to you all based off of like what you're needing. So what we did provide to you was a copy of every building's building needs assessment. I just want to remind everyone, this is still a work in progress. The principals each have their individual budget meetings scheduled with our team internally, where we are looking at talking about the building needs assessments and what their staff allocations and those components are. So to be fair to the principals, none of those conversations have occurred yet, correct? They start after spring break. So you have 3 documents that's under the public content area, and it just basically gives you the outline of this is what the annual process looks like for the building needs assessment. I will say that all of our principals do their school improvement plan. That's an ongoing process, and they use that to drive their building needs assessments. It does outline in there how they engage the variety of stakeholders and what data and things that they are using. And that is the first document that says annual needs assessment background information. The second document is the current staffing, roster verification, and updates. They do that. We've started that process. HR is a part of our meeting today. After this meeting, it was just the second part of that. And then the third one is the projected budget allocations and spending decisions and background. And that's where the different budget codes and those things that can be purchased out of certain things, principals are reminded of that. And then we also just look at that and talk about the different needs or the things that may be barriers, because as you all know, there's staff shortages across the nation. So that's where sometimes we get creative on how to meet those needs. And then when there are things like we have a threshold, and I'll talk about what the staffing ratio is, and we talk about what we will do or when they can add another staff member based off our ratios. So the ratios for the 24-25 school year, kindergarten through second grade is 1 to 21, and with a range of 1 to 21 to 1 to 23. Max is 25. Third grade through fifth grade is 1 to 23 to 1 to 24. 25, max is 27. Sixth grade is 1 to 23. And 9th through 12th grade is 1 to 24. We did increase the ratio the last couple of years because one of the things that we wanted to make certain was that a lot of our buildings get federal title dollars, and a lot of them, in a lot of cases, what is needed is to make the class size smaller. So in order to avoid supplanting and/or having classes so small that we couldn't staff them, because we looked at the data, we came to a balance of where that breaking point is. So while this is the baseline, a lot of times the classes are smaller because of the additional funding that staffing is, building principals are allocated to use. There is things across the level that are the same for all buildings, like we all use the same core curriculum. Every building has a principal. At the middle school and high school level, they all have a certain number of assistant principals. It does increase when it's a little, when it's with the larger schools. And at our elementary schools, depending on the size, they have an assistant principal based off size. And a couple of years ago, there were some buildings based off of performance or different things that they were allocated an assistant principal. So that's kind of generically baseline. I just wanted to put that out there, and then I can turn it over to you. And Dr. Nguyen, I'm looking at you specifically because you lead the chair of the finance committee, to make sure if there was anything that I didn't share or things that you may want to make sure that we address, that we can hear here. And then my recommendation, similar to Mr. Lopez, if we start the conversation, we start by levels, and we would start our high schools. We have that's the fewest number, so we would start with our high school if you have questions instead of alphabetical, because they have more in common, and then we would go from there. So go by levels versus alphabetically. And if you don't have questions or you need more time to review it, you could have that time, and that way we can communicate with the principals before the 26th meeting. Ideally, we would like for them to have that information a week in advance, because they're so busy, so that they would have an opportunity, if they needed to have another staff member here or to get clarity, they would have that opportunity.
Well, I would just say thank you and good morning, and I don't think we've had this opportunity to see everybody together. And so, but the question is, are we in church? Why are you guys at the back? We're not taking up an offering today, so, and then you can get out earlier if you get at the front door. But again, thank you, because over the last 3 years, and I'm sure Dr. Stubblefield shared this with you, the needs assessment, the law has been on the books for how long? Forever. But there has been this, how you characterize it? Push, grind. How would you characterize it, Dr. Stubblefield?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know. She's so polite today, as always. But it's just been an effort to put more pressure on various boards to document that they've had these type of meetings. And I would just ask on behalf of the board that today, next week, however we are in this budget, that you share with them the end goal.
Yes.
The end goal is for us to know how to allocate resources. And I've always said, you all are on the ground, you're on the front line, you know better than we know. But we do need to know so that when you need something, you have those resources. And we won't know unless you tell us. So I know there's a process, and you just can't put something on the wall, but we need to know specifically. So that's the only thing I would ask. So thank you for coming, and look forward.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen and Dr. Stubblefield. So board, you heard kind of the initial around the building needs assessment, kind of the process that principals are going through. It's ongoing. So board, before we open up specifically to the schools and the different levels, just any questions or thoughts around the process, any clarification on what Dr. Stubblefield mentioned in terms of how the principals are going about and how staff are going about with the building needs assessment before we get to the specific levels? I'm looking online, Ms. Drew, Ms. Page, just want to make sure, okay. No specific questions on the process. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Stubblefield. So I'll open it up. We'll start with the high school building needs assessment. Any questions on any of the specific high school assessments that the board has been able to review?
Yeah, and I'll just remind you, we have our 5 comprehensive high schools, Sligo, Sumner, Washington, Wyandotte, and Harmon, and then we also have our alternative school, which is Alfred Fairfax, which serves high school students. So those are the 6 high schools that we have. They all completed. If you had a chance to review the building needs assessment, you would see there were some common things that, like, the process is common for most of them on a lot of the answers. Where you see the nuances or the differences is based off size, what their actual performance scores may be, and what their need may be, and it varies from school to school, and they have included the information that they have, but they are still going through the process. So I didn't know if there were any specific questions based off need. When I had a chance to look through them, and I didn't memorize them, I think most of them have articulated or communicating what their needs are, or have a plan for that. And as they go through the budget components with the finance team, and Ms. Walker is not here today, but Lisa Walker and their executive director of schools, they problem solve around things, or talk about how to address the needs that they may be having.
Well, Dr. Stubblefield, would it be proper to ask someone to maybe give a high-level priority list of what the collective group believe, so that, you know, we could start from there?
What the collective group, so I will say, from the high school perspective, and Dr. Irvin or in the high school principals could come forward if you like, and if I'm wrong, just tell me I'm wrong. Dr. Irvin is their executive director. She works with them on a daily basis. She's in the schools with them and addressing their needs. All of the schools have been trained, recently received AVID training. They have JAG-K. Sumner will do AVID training this summer. I don't know if there is a specific need, and if any of you want to speak that you're like, we really need this, or we feel like this is missing, how can we navigate it? I don't know if there's a theme that has come up. They also all have been trained, their staff has been trained in restorative practices. They are working with the Student Services Department. I think Dr. Wilson talked about like the chronic absenteeism and the different ways to navigate that. And then recently, this year, we did develop, this was something that came up, an alternative to suspension, and we started with the high schools. We are evaluating what that looks like at the middle school and elementary level, but those kind of things are things that are coming to my mind that we have added to address challenges that have come up and to build on opportunities. But if I'm missing anything, anybody can speak up if there's something collectively you're working on. The other thing on the academic side, we have started to heavily invest into the professional learning communities and provide support around that and to structure to the day so that they can meet in those meetings. But I will pause. I see Ms. Stewart and Ms. Irvin, Dr. Irvin has. Is there anything else that you want to share or highlight?
Well, I'll speak for the high school principals, and thank you for having us here. This is a good, unique experience and a good opportunity. So as we meet together as high school principals, and we meet regularly and talk and look for commonalities, we're always looking at academics, behavior, and the attendance issue, and trying to think about what are the interventions we put in place. We look at our schools as professional learning communities following the PLC model. So that means we try to get clear about what our goals are and then what data we need to be looking at to measure how we're doing on that. That's when we move to, okay, then if our data isn't saying, or whatever our data is saying, how do we intervene? And so with the academic side, we are really honed in on the AVID strategies and the AVID program. So we all will be putting supports for that in our budget. We also know that additional academic support is needed in some kind of tutoring. We have had the luxury of having our TPT as a part of our work, and we're evaluating that and looking at that and seeing that as a needed piece of what we do. The IXL, it was a gift to us from the state this year, but we know that that's an important intervention piece, and so making sure, not just in math, but math and English, that we have that opportunity because we can clearly target that to our GVC and to the needs of the students. As the content teams meet in the school, they can identify strengths and weaknesses with our students' performance, and then you can go right to IXL and identify and target intervention for the students to be working on. And the nice thing about that, it is connected, or it is through technology, and so you don't have to have the same thing for every student. You can really individualize to their needs. So that's really, really helpful for us. And so that's the academic side of it. The attendance side is, we know that we look at both our attendance rate, we look at from year to year and from month to month. We're trying to identify what are the interventions we need to put in place. We know that chronic absenteeism is a chronic problem. We need to figure that out too. And so one of the things that we know that is important is that we have to connect and intervene with our students. It's not just one size fits all. There's many reasons why they are absent from school. So mentoring is really, really important, and having those connections going on. So we're trying to figure out, are there mentoring supports programs for us? How are we getting to really identify what the needs of our students are, rather than just generalities kind of thing. And so that's important. We're also looking at the behavior piece of it. And of course, mentoring is really, really helpful with that. As Dr. Stubblefield mentioned, looking for how do we develop restorative practices around with the students. It's not just about suspending them. In fact, we're looking at all sorts of alternative to suspension programs. We all work with the district's A2A, the Attendance to Attend to Achieve program. And so then it starts to mesh together. When you talk about attendance and behavior and academics, it all kind of starts impacting each other. So that mentoring, that focused work with our students, and then really intervening with the data to understand how do we intervene during the school day. This is the first year that we've really started to put some power behind the intervention time within the school day. All the high schools have that now. So that we don't, it's not an after-school tutoring kind of thing that has to happen. We can identify, and we even have a scheduling process that can help students go to a different place at different times based on their either academic behavior or attendance needs. And then we can try to work on that. So those are that's the frame we're working on, and trying to make sure all our resources go to that.
Could you just briefly help us understand how IXL works?
Yeah, it's powerful. It's really powerful. So the students, there's all sorts of ways it can work, but let me give you a big overview, right?
Picture.
Students can take a diagnostic, so they can go in there and they just work some problems. Then the program itself actually gives them spits out a report that says, this is where your strengths are, and this is some areas you can work on to grow. And then here are some modules you can work on that you can practice these skills. And it tracks it. The teachers can monitor. The students can see the monitoring of it. They celebrate their successes with it. And it's individualized to each and every student. It's also aligned to our Kansas standards.
Okay.
So if a teacher's in the classroom and they're working on the students citing evidence to support a claim, and the students, they have a group of students who are really struggling on it, they can identify a specific IXL lesson that the students go into. And what it is, it might give them, they start working problems, and as they get it right, they maybe get a little bit more difficult problems, and they continue working up to get to a certain level of achievement. If they get it wrong, it gives them an exam, or it gives them an explanation of why they got it wrong. And it helps them, then gives them additional problems to keep practicing. So students can do it at home without anybody else around them. Students can do it in the classroom, they can do it at any time. And it tracks their progress. So it's not just a one and done thing, but it's very specific.
So is it part of the daily, first is math, right?
Math and ELA.
Math and
We
ELA.
get math as a gift from the state this year.
Okay, so does that mean, Dr. Stubblefield, it will not be funded by the state next year, or
So
what?
we just received information that the state is going to fund IXL for next year too.
Okay,
For math.
For math.
so.
We also have it in our, some of us are working on it in ELA too, because like I said, there's other places like citing evidence to support a claim. Students need more practice on that. It could be things that are from elementary, middle school gaps that they're needing to build up. And a teacher within a classroom, that there's so much differentiation they can have, but they can't always fill all those gaps. So IXL is a perfect support for that.
So we will have to supply the English resource. We'll have to pay for that.
So when the budget is allocated, there's a portion of their budget that's what they're looking at and saying, so is money already,
In the district.
at the district level, we have not, we've built it into their building budgets and that, yes, yes.
All the money's the same, but.
Yes, so yes, we have allocated money for like support, intervention, tutoring, and then we really work with the building principals and they look at what their staff is saying and make selections accordingly based off like the, what works clearinghouse, what's on the different lists that are acceptable for us to pay for with federal dollars or general dollars.
Are there any other, what would you, it's not a program, what do you call it?
Intervention supports.
Intervention. Are there any other subject matter interventions that your
We are currently field test, we are still working to figure it out as a district. We're field testing a rewards curriculum this year. I don't know, it is for students who are struggling readers and needing support for that, or they're just having a hard time accessing the high school level content because of the reading level. And so we're using that with we use our Fast Bridge scores to kind of identify who needs that. And we're working on that. It requires the teacher to be trained and the teacher to give that training. I know the middle school uses am I right, Lexia, what's the name of it? Lexia, yes. We would, and it does go through 12th grade. That could be something we could use at the high school. So but it needs to be research-based.
Dr. Irving, about resource? I mean, that's something we put in our parking lot for resources?
Yeah.
The additional Lexia component?
Yes.
So the things that the high school principals asking for, those things will be put in their needs assessment, and also when we look at the budget, they will earmark funds for the types of support that they would like to use on the campus.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
For
Thank you.
providing that overview.
Any other questions or feedback on the high school building?
Mr. Lopez,
Yes, Ms. Page.
yeah, I have a question, and I was concerned about nursing at our high schools. Do we have adequate nurses in our high school? And when I mean adequate, is there a nurse at every school?
Yes, all of the high schools, they're all nodding. You can't see them, Ms. Page. They're all nodding that, yes, they have adequate nursing at the high school level.
Well, let's go this way. So are there any non-academic resource items that would just enhance the student's experience so that maybe absenteeism, you're not going to solve with one silver bullet, but have you ever thrown any of those ideas around?
So as Ms. Stewart mentioned, I think in the non-academic area, we're really looking for mentoring. We're looking for sources of community support to come in and engage with our students. We're looking for programs that can help us connect with our families more. And what I think our schools try to do a really good job of, but could always use more support, is in how we celebrate our students and our families for achieving the milestones that we're asking them to reach. So we can never give too much in support of our students and families doing the right thing and reaching our goals.
That sounds exciting.
Thank you.
Mr. Lopez, I'm sorry, I was trying to write something else. I know I heard them say that we do have nursing at all the high schools. Has that been budgeted in? Because I'm concerned with the fentanyl situation. We need to make sure that we have people who are there who can assist and help our students in every way. And then we also have special needs. Do we have someone who's qualified, who's going to be there to do that?
So, Ms. Page, I know Ms. Lewis is on the meeting as well virtually. As we shared, it is budgeted to have nurses, the level of staffing of nurses that is needed. Where there were challenges, which this is a separate conversation from the building needs assessment, is that there was a shortage, so we had to use contract agencies, and that is what has caused the health service budget, because the nurses are not in the building budgets, they're in the department health service budgets, to go over or to have some challenges. And we're working through those components, but as far as the building needs assessments and what the building principals have control over in their budget, they're all saying that they do have the support there, that they're adequately staffed. Ms. Lewis and her team does a phenomenal job when somebody is out, making sure that there is backup there or deploying others. And if something is happening, Ms. Lewis and her team, along with the lead nurses, do deploy to the location where there may be an incident, but they do have people on site, and they all have been trained on how to address it. And Ms. Lewis, if you want to add anything, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I can see that you're on the screen. If I misspoke, please feel free to share.
You're correct. Our high schools and middle schools are predominantly funded by contract staff. We only have 15 district guardians. So other than that, our staff is highly staffed with agency.
Okay, thank you. And I guess my concern, and I know we're dealing with academics, but if we're going to get attendance up, you do have to look at what are some, in terms of these kids being sick and other things that would keep them from being there. And I know what's on the form, but you also have to look at that other piece. And I know we only got an hour, but I just want to keep that in the forefront, that we need to make sure we have people who are trained and qualified who are going to help our kids. And if we can help them with their basic needs, then hopefully they can be there at school, and then we can work on the academic piece. So that was where my concern. I realize that's not on the form, but that's an issue.
Thank you, Ms. Page. And I think that's important, right, as a theme that all the schools and all the levels can give feedback on, other ways that we're supporting students outside of the academic arena. So I think that's helpful just to lift up. So thanks for bringing that up, Ms. Page, and something that the schools and the buildings can help us think through. One thing that Dr. Bilbo shared, and nothing that we need to discuss now, but just as you all at your buildings are looking at different ways to celebrate students or work with mentors or outside groups, I think this board has tried to address some of those policies that we have in place to help support that. But I know that sometimes there may be policies, and I know it's always we want to protect our students and our staff, and there are legal reasons that we have to do things certain ways. But if there are policies that that you're bumping up against that make it more difficult, I guess, to work with some of those programs, like mentoring programs or other outside groups to build that support that you need at the buildings. I think that's good feedback for us to have if there are policies that we should be taking a look at that are hindering some of that. So again, nothing that is on the needs assessment or needs to be discussed today, but I would just make sure that you all know if there are those policies that the board should be reviewing. Let us know, or let Dr. Bilbo Irvin know and Dr. Stubblefield so that we can, because we're constantly wanting to look at our policies to make sure that they're supportive.
Okay. One more? Yes.
Just, and maybe not to be able to think about it or report out now, but all of our students are adults. I mean, kindergartners, I know if you guys teach kindergartners, they come as adults. But for the high schools, are there any unique extracurricular activities that the students would have to, I mean, I'm trying to hook them into coming to school, but that would address the absenteeism or the performance or the behavior, but that they would really want to participate in, that's truly unique, that you know, they could experience, that we could put in the budget. I think that that Grammy experience was pretty rewarding to some of them. But still, think about that. You may not have it now, and don't even have it planned, but we need to consider those types of things as well.
So the high school principals have been talking about esports because that's something new that they think would grab a lot of students. Working with members of the Diploma Plus team to look at curriculum for esports to turn it into, I know Harmon has a club and we're looking at expanding the club to other high schools, but those are some of the programs that we think would really draw more students to attend. I know that our high school principals talk about transportation for, some of those things happen after school, and to really engage kids, making sure that we can get kids home when the activity is over with. But esports is one of those things that we feel like can be that hook to attract students who are not really engaged or involved in other things, can take that as an opportunity to get engaged and come to school.
Well, we need those kind of ideas.
Yeah. And the other thing that I would say that did come up, because we piloted it with the basketball, and we asked about would it be with other sports, but there is a cost to it, was the sports broadcasting network. And kids did get to help produce that component. We did collaborate with Diploma Plus. It was not in the budget. We pulled it together, but as we look at next year, what does that look like for all of our, in some way to highlight all of our extracurricular activities, including some of the fine arts performances. I know Mr. Birch and his team were going to meet with the production company that did that, and then to talk about how do we leverage that and build that, some parts of it, into our school day if it's possible. So we're exploring that, but that involved kids, like you had the kids who were actually competing in the sport, but you also had the kids behind the scenes that made it happen. And really, what we did not have kids where we probably could have had more kids, or I shouldn't say we did not, we could have had them have a more role, is actually on the front side of it, to be the commentator, to be the speaker, but you have to prepare them for that. And so we didn't want to throw them into that. And that is not currently, we don't have spaces built out where they're learning that skill set. But I did get a lot of feedback, and kids are very interested in doing that. So that's an area that probably would hook.
And the educator in me, you tie it to academics.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
It's a hook. And you will grab some, and you probably will lose some, but at least it can encourage.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
So middle school, I know we're putting somebody or someone on the spot. So Dr. Scott and whoever wants to be the official spokesperson can come and.
You're putting them on the spot.
I am, because I didn't, they're sharing. They're always prepared. You stay ready so you don't have to get ready. So I know they're ready. They're walking up here. They will share just a high-level overview. I will lead with, you all know because you approved that we are changing the middle school schedule next year. We've changed it to offer more I call them specials or electives. So they may speak to that and what that looks like and what they're planning with that. But it is to get kids more engaged, to have more academic opportunities, and to align with the new graduation requirements at the state level. And we've navigated some things to be fair and to have all of the different voices heard around the schedule, and we'll learn and make the adjustments after we live through it this year if it's necessary. So, thank you.
Good morning. I'm just going to discuss, you'll see nuances between each middle school just based on their academic data, specific attendance data needs, but then overall, middle schools share some same wants and needs, similar to high school, but I'll let Principal Chapman of Carl B. Bruce Middle School share those.
Good morning, Board.
Morning.
Thank you for having us. We are looking at specifically continuing our work around MTSS, training for interventions, and having some software to help us do those things. We continue to use Lexia as well, and we also are using IXL as mentioned earlier on. Dr. Scott and others have also helped us with the behavior data, trying to tailor our behavior data and find those interventions and using some of the books and things that Dr. Wilson has provided to us on a day-to-day basis. We're also receiving regular information about some things that we can do differently to avoid suspension and to keep kids in school, to help tailor that chronic absenteeism and keep that down as well. Restorative practice training, again, Dr. Wilson, our restorative justice trainers are also needing consistent training so they can continue to train staff. We're continuing to have restorative circles, not only with children, but children with staff, to repair those relationships and to help facilitate those conversations, not only within the classroom, but outside the classroom, because there's a lot of things that are going on between students and adult relationships, and we have to continue to build relational capacity, but also provide student agency in that, so students are having voice as well, and not just not being heard, but being able to have that conversation with and not at them. We enhance and do other things, other ways to deal with chronic absenteeism. Family engagement is one. I know some of us have tried to keep it with another activity, like with a basketball game or something that happens immediately after. We use our network PLC to have a lot of those conversations with Dr. Scott and our colleagues as well, to try to help discuss what are we doing about chronic absenteeism and how to keep that down. We do know that a lot of kids will not show up during inclement weather. Many parents will call in if it's pouring down raining and say, my child is not walking today, or if it's too cold, they will not walk because of our boundaries and the distance that they have to walk to and from. Particularly with my school, you're talking about crossing parallel, and that gets a little dicey when you start talking about ice, rain, snow, any type of inclement weather in that capacity, and the same thing for Central and Rosedale and the others. We also talked about training for new electives that have been placed into our buildings and our sites. We need folks to be trained to do those things so that they are getting the proper support, and not only the proper support, but providing quality Tier 1 instruction that we're requesting and asking for, and those things that we're looking for when we conduct walkthroughs. Is there any other questions that I might be able to answer?
Thank you, Board. Any questions?
Well, just think outside the box. Of course, boxes cost.
Yes.
But anything that the high school people said that maybe triggered some thoughts?
The esports is huge with our students. I call them TikTok babies because everything is 60 seconds or something like that, and a lot of their attention is on technology. And so if there's any ways to enhance the technology, it would be great. We provided one-to-one with all our devices, but when we did the one-to-one, we didn't get keyboards with those. So some kids may need that keyboard because when you think about MLLs and you're asking them to process on a device and learn the language and transfer it back to English, that could be a little bit dicey. So some of those little things like that. Intramural sports. We have kids who do intramural sports, but I think sometimes we forget about the performing arts. Every child is not an athlete, And so we need to be thinking about other ways to get children involved through drama, theater, performing. I know at West Park, we're partnering with them to go watch Matilda and things like that. So I try to make sure that I'm aware of what my colleagues are doing, but I'm also doing a lot of partnership with Mary and Central to make sure that my kids understand what academies are, having those conversations with Diploma Plus, providing more opportunities to go on field trips for students. I think it gets a little tough on us just because of the area we live in, the distance we have to drive to and from to get there, and the time constraints around the buses, only being able to leave by 9 and having to be back by 2. Those type of restraints are stopping some of the things that we as principals would like to do, but we can't. And we know funding has a lot to do with some of those things.
Okay, so help us with potential solutions about,
I think it boils down to more people resources. When COVID happened, we lost a lot of bus drivers, and some of those things are just out the locus of our control with the lack of people who work and choose not to work, and then just retirees who decided after COVID they didn't want to work. So I'm not sure if there is a response. I just think we have to stretch as best as we can and do the best we can with what we have until there's other ways that we can support the process.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to add, a lot of what Dr. Irvin shared is how can we partner more with community partners to bridge some of the gaps. When we look at mentoring with some of our students, will that help with our chronic absenteeism? Adding different intramurals or esports, connecting with kids who don't connect to athletics or other types of events, just finding different ways to involve kids in schools so they feel connected, and that can be done with tangible resources as well as people resources.
I have a question, because it's coming back from what the high school said and what I'm hearing. Thank you all for coming. On the volunteer outside tutoring, I was a part of an organization, well, I still am, that years ago, we did outside tutoring, where we would come into Douglas and the grade schools, elementary schools, and the middle schools. Somewhere down the line, that got severed. I don't know many of you all knew about this or were part of that. I don't know why it stopped. Of course, the organization I was a part of, and there were others. The data was pretty good, and all of a sudden it just stopped through other administration changes. I'm hearing that from the second time from the high schools now. You all are in agreement with it. I feel that this is very key and necessary and needed in our community. So I just feel we need to make a way, however this can be done, to recapture that from other organizations or certain organizations. I know we just can't let anybody come in and tutor, but to go to specific organizations, have the outside tutoring, because we're mentioning 3 things that was mentioned from the high school level. We talked about behavior side, the attendance side, and academic side. Outside tutoring will, as we incorporate that, will be a positive for all 3 of these. As like Dr. Wynn said, there's no silver bullet, but there's some positive aspects. So I just feel, not to take a lot of time, we need to invest in that, and it's not going to be a lot of money. It's not going to be budget-wise. We can get proper individuals, respectable people to be outside tutoring where and I was a part of it, I enjoyed it. And it's on down the line, not to belabor the time, but on back that, because my particular school was Douglas. I enjoyed that. So, and others had, at that time, Northwest, others had Grant. So I'm just going to leave that. I'm hearing that, so I think that's something that we need to press forward and look at that, and we'll help all 3 of these items, what we're talking about, that's needed in our community.
We want to explore time during the day.
Okay.
Because when we have our kids, then that's the best time that we can intervene and do that tutoring. At both the middle and high school with AVID, there is the AVID elective, and there's a component to that which are called tutorials. It is difficult to find college students, because in most other school systems, they partner with colleges for those who are in teacher preparation programs to come in and do the tutorials with our students. So we're trying to think outside the box. Can you reach out to retired teachers? Or if we are aware of other organizations that we could vet through the volunteer process to come in and assist with that, I think that's a perfect way to bring the community in and assist with a need that both middle and high school have.
Exactly.
And one of the things I will tell you, there have been some preliminary conversations around that. We have partnerships with Junior Achievement, and we're exploring a possible partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters, because they do have a system where they train, background check, and do those components that it is, so it's not adding something else to our student services department to monitor and try to address. So we are looking at it, but we definitely do want to always add an opportunity for community members to serve as mentors, tutors, in a way that we can also manage and support. So we have started to have those conversations.
Okay.
We have.
One more.
Go ahead.
And I hate to actually come back, and I think I didn't ask this for the high school because I just saw it on the Carl Bruce needs assessment. Any additional resources for foster children or activities, or I noticed, I read it on the Carl Bruce.
I think the key is we need to tighten our structure up a little bit more with McKinney-Vento. We have some issues with transportation there, like you were talking about, with getting kids to and from school. And sometimes if a kid has an appointment and they get dropped off by the parent, they don't have a ride home because because the transportation system won't pick them up in the afternoon because they wasn't aware they was there. There are some loopholes there with some of that system particularly. I can't think of anything else in terms of what else we might be needing off the top of my head.
Maybe something we need, but also for either the middle school or high school, any additional thoughts about expanding Saturday school?
That Saturday school has been pretty productive for us. We've been using it to help do some of our restorative practices in there, talk about chronic absenteeism with some of those kids who are absent, to help them understand by being absent, this is why you have this amount of work to do, and then that's why we've been using it to tutor. So that's how we've been using it at Carl Bruce.
Any additional ideas about expanding it, Dr. Scott, or anything?
Again, it's like nuanced from campus to campus based on their budgets as well as staffing. I think we all realize it's difficult for teachers to work a full school day, then ask them to stay after and tutor, but then also, would you mind coming in on a Saturday to assist? So there's a lot of things that a principal has to think through in order to get their return on investment with the finances that they are given. But each school is unique, and they try and find unique ways just to meet the needs of their specific school community.
Thank you.
And I'm just watching the time. So we have about 5 minutes left. So elementary, we can pick up with this kind of general overview spokesperson, unless I see somebody hopping up. If you want to go, you can go, but then we can pick up where we left off. So elementary can give their overview. We may go a little few minutes over, but then board, that will give you the opportunity to, and that's okay. We can adjust the other schedule on the backside. That will give you an opportunity to either send questions so that when we come back on the 26th, that it could be productive or we can prepare them. So I won't steal your thunder, elementary. I was going to delay you, but if you're ready, you can go.
So what do the principals do for the rest of the day?
Today?
Yeah.
Rest of the day.
They have there's another portion of their regular meeting, but they need to get back to the buildings because the kids are actually at school today. This
You
is
said
just their,
buildings, buildings.
yeah, so we're not trying to like
Did
run
you have
them
to
up.
eat
That's
the
what
microphone? Building.
their buildings, their primary responsibilities, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, no, go ahead.
All right, well, we heard downstairs. I'm Katie Geedy from Mark Twain, and I'm with Desiree Albrighton. And we're going to be the spokespeople for all of our elementary peeps. So there they are.
Jazz hands.
We heard downstairs you wanted to hear a little bit about teacher budgets, so how we budget for teachers to get their resources. Is that a yes?
Sure.
Well, first of all, we buy all the supplies needed for the students. So crayons, pencils, pencil sharpeners, papers, everything needed for the students, notebooks. And then we also try to buy all of the resources that the teacher will need for instruction. So chart papers, whiteboards, whiteboard erasers, expo markers, those things add up really big time. Paper and cardstock. And then on top of that, we do a lot teacher budgets. Most of us 2 times a year between $100 and $200. So one spending session in the fall and one spending session in the spring. Right, elementary? Yeah, so, and then above and beyond that, if a teacher needs additional things, all they have to do is ask, or they can give us a wish list. We also heard you loud and clear talking about chronic absenteeism, and we have so much going on to try to prevent chronic absenteeism at the elementary level. We have daily rewards, we have monthly rewards, we have quarterly rewards, we have training for parents on reducing chronic absenteeism. We have class rewards where the class can earn a letter each day for perfect attendance and then get a reward party at the end of that time. So we have lots of things going on to try to prevent chronic absenteeism. I'm going to link that a little bit into advocating for a certified nurse in every building, a registered nurse in every building. Currently at my school, we have a CNA through the agency, and I would argue that we don't know the true acuity of every building. We don't know who's walking in there. So we don't know how sick our kids are until they get there or until they have an incident. So I would strongly argue we need a registered nurse in every building. We also heard earlier that some of our middle schools and high schools get IXL in reading, and we want to advocate for IXL in reading, and also some building level choice on what technology is needed for our individual buildings. We heard just the day before yesterday that we might not be getting full-time specials, art, music, and PE, and a big question about what library looks like as we go forward. We do need those full-time specials in our building. For our smaller schools, we utilize those people to serve MTSS. So if we're truly dedicated to MTSS, we need to be talking about intervention teachers, the reading teacher that helps organize the MTSS, and having the capacity, the people to actually do the lessons. One more thing about librarians. I think at elementary school especially, we could consider reducing the certifications. I have a long-term librarian, so do some of my colleagues, long-term sub as a librarian. We could reduce that qualifications to a teacher certificate because we really just want them to teach and read to kids, get the love of reading, so we could change that qualifications on librarians.
The only thing I'll add is the certification is not our choice. That's by KSDE. So if you all want to advocate that at the State Department level, you absolutely can advocate for that. That's not a district decision.
You can talk about it again, though.
Good morning.
It's very important.
One of the things that's on our list is reading intervention teachers. So when we do our reading intervention master schedule, all of our students are on that cycle for the majority of our schools. And so why Katie was talking about having specials full-time, they help support that. You must have reading interventionists that help with that cycle. They calculate all the data, and then they also support students. And so if ESSER dollars are going away, some of our reading interventionists are paid out of that budget. And so now we're going to advocate to have more money in our budget for our reading interventionists in particular. And then I'll just talk about the SEL side of it. I know that we have restorative practices. The elementary is just getting started with some of the training. Some buildings have more trainings than others. So having either a student support monitor or a restorative justice facilitator will be something they will be advocating for. Some buildings also do conscious discipline, and some do responsive classrooms. So when it comes to looking at that discipline type of data, those are some of the whether it's a consultant or a PD or things like that that you'll need for your building. That is some of the things that principals are also advocating for. So.
Before she tells you about family engagement, I do have two more things to add. We used to be CPR certified in our buildings. We have not had that in, I want to say, probably 6 to 8 years, where we would have a team at each building CPR certified. We have a much, to me, a less healthy staff and less healthy student body. So I would advocate for CPR training, and I would also advocate for CPI training, crisis prevention intervention. In my building, I'm the only one that's CPI trained.
When it comes to family engagement, that's going to vary across buildings, especially depending on probably how much community support that you have. So in my building, I know I do have a lot of community partnerships that do a lot for our families, but if you do not have a lot of community partnerships, that's also something that you have to allocate for when it comes to family engagement, or additional evening events, such as all of our math and science nights, literacy night, things like that that we have. We would like to add to that, to be able to have more family engagement, such as like resource fairs, right? But with that comes, supplying food, supplies for them. So I just know that some of our buildings are looking at some different things that we would like to roll out next year. And one of them is the resource fair for a lot of our families. I know also some of us have been attending things like immigration law type PDs and things like that. And so being able to have people come support some of our families, especially the Hispanic families and some of them that are coming in, it's really nice. And that's one of the things they've been advocating for, is just to have more help, right, when they come into the country. So I just know those are a few things that are on there, but it will require more money, especially when it comes to our title budget, just adding more things in there for just based on what parents are asking us for. It's not just literacy and math nights, but if we're aware of the community needs, how can we support them that way?
Thank you both very much for sharing. I know there was a lot in there, and I'm sure there's much more that could be shared. We are bumping up on time. I don't want to cut our time short, but I know all of you have other things that you need to get to as well today. Board, we've heard a lot at every level. Again, this is just part of our conversations, the beginning of it. We will have an additional opportunity at our March 26th board meeting to have further conversation and to do a little bit of a deeper dive. We may start out with elementary since they didn't get much time today, but we can work on that. But board, if you have specific questions about what you've heard today at any level, please make sure that we're sending those to Dr. Stubblefield so that they can send them to our building leveled and our principals, so that we can get that information back. I do just thank you to all of you who came forward and spoke on behalf of your levels. As I said, there's a lot of information to dive into on the needs assessments board, so please make sure that you're taking time to review those. There were some common themes I think that we've heard across the board at the levels today that I think are important to continue to lift up and make sure that we don't lose those. And as we're thinking about the budget, how we can support the building levels at some of those pieces. And I especially, appreciate thinking outside the box, or the creativity. And like Dr. Wynn said, the boxes cost money, but I think how do we become creative in supporting some of these issues that our buildings are seeing, and help letting them get creative, right? Giving them the space and the resources to get creative on how we do this work. So with that, Dr. Stubblefield, anything else that we need to share today?
I don't have anything else. I will take this time, just because this is being broadcast and somebody may be watching it. We are sending out communication district-wide that effective after spring break, the high school hours have been adjusted to meet the state requirements. And by adding the additional 20 minutes to the high school day, April 19th will now go back to being a no school day. We are at all levels. We're communicating that out to all of our families. We did work collaboratively with our KNEA team to address some questions that had come up about April 19th being a duty day, but we haven't added 20 minutes in the past. We did figure out a way to do it, and that will address the state requirements for minutes that students have to attend. So thank you to the high school principals and to all of those who have worked to make this happen, but it'll go into effect when students return after spring break.
Thank you. Dr. Nguyen?
I just wanted to say thank you again for participating. We really need to know. And the needs assessments it's only been the last couple of years we've been even looking at them. And so I'll just speak for myself. I take them very seriously. I read everything, but you guys know that anyway. Please continue to help us help make the district stronger, you all stronger, more successful as students and everybody. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Again, with that, thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great spring break if we don't see you before then. Yeah, we'll see you all soon. Thank you. This meeting's adjourned.